Welcome to Introduction of PetroCup, a petroleum flight simulator. This is online training and testing facility. It simulates the typical asset behavior so that a professional asset team can go through a highly realistic, multi-year field production in just one or few days and learn a lot from this experience, almost as much as one learns from many years of actual work in the petroleum asset team. It is very practical. You can drill wells, do walkovers, acquire and interpret new data, conduct a study and manage finance. And it does not have a teacher, as people are playing with a robot on the synthetic field. But the human is still behind this, as it was highly qualified specialists with multi-year experience who were building such a realistic petroleum robot, and it was humans who were synthesizing the highly sophisticated assets which have a long chain of fair challenges in all petroleum disciplines. It is a very effective tool for cross-discipline learning, since all actual procedures are intensified and accelerated during the PetroCup sessions. The amount of the cross-disciplines interactions are increasing proportionally, giving people an opportunity to share their views and analytical tricks with the other members of the team. The interactive formula of PetroCup sessions allows people to learn from their mistakes, which many teachers believe is probably one of the most long-standing knowledge acquisition technique. Apart from training, the PetroCup sessions provide an unbiased, robotized assessment of the team in their ability to perform. This may be applied in many ways in practice, from testing individuals to testing a complete asset team, from testing students and postgraduates to testing the new team on the experienced professionals before embarking on the board of a new field development project. And finally, the PetroCup sessions are available online, which means different teams can join a PetroCup session from anywhere across the world and time zones. Moreover, the team's participants can join the sessions remotely from office or home or hotel or train or even a Palm Beach, although it may limit their ability for agile communication. Probably the most important skill in PetroCup is the integrated asset management. In theory, a perfect asset manager only needs to get the right team on board and ensure they are capable to cooperate efficiently. Then watch the team perform through the tournament and at the end enjoy the victory in the final standings. In practice, the PetroCup is probably the tool where asset managers can get themselves actively involved to monitor the team interaction, steering the process, and then making some critical decisions for real-life activities. And there should be quite an experience. How many times we were hearing that simulation engineer is asking for the new workstation to speed up the bulky reservoir flow simulations. And then well test engineer is asking for more pressure surveys. And surface facility engineer is asking for a pipeline upgrade or a field desalination plant. And production technologist is asking for a bigger pump. And petrophysicist is asking for more core data. And well log analyst is asking for more production logs. And then geologist is actually asking for a new field, as the current one looks like hopeless and boring. And then the manager, the asset manager, places a fair question whether he has the right team to integrate the multidiscipline knowledge. If the field is really dead, then it's dead. But if you drop it and someone else picks it up and produces efficiently, then it would be awkward, to say the least. The next important skill is understanding the field geology and distribution of initial reserves, including those which might have been overlooked. And this requires a strong support from petrophysics, including the open-hole data interpretation, core data analysis, and cluster-based lithofacial analysis through various crossplots. The full-field simulation skill is a key to understanding the current reserves distribution and help prioritizing development opportunities. In PetroCup Express sessions, which are 1 or 2 days only, a simulation engineer will not be able to do actual simulations. But just like in real life, the key skill of simulation engineer is not pressing the software buttons, but careful analysis and filtering of the all available static and dynamic data, understanding the predominant flow scenario, and then build dynamic model along with this scenario. In order to do this, simulation engineer may require additional data acquisition during the new drilling or case hole production logging or well testing. And this is exactly the skill which will be trained and tested during the Express PetroCup sessions. Production data analysis is the next important skill which helps understanding well flow performance and account for inaccurate allocations. Production logging competence helps team design the logging procedure and then understand the flow profile, pressure profile, and capture behind casing communications. Well testing competence helps team design well test procedures, then understand pressure dynamics, estimate drainage volumes around tested wells, assess skin buildup dynamics, correlate dynamic permeability thickness with open hole predictions, and assess cross-well communications. Surface facility competence helps team understand when and how the surface facility should be upgraded. Drilling competence helps designing drilling procedure, logging package, and completion procedures to achieve maximum benefits versus cost. Walkover competence helps designing integrity and reservoir-oriented procedures and surveillance support in the most economic way. Production optimization is another important duty of the asset team which PetroCup is simulating. The production and injection settings for each well individually should be adjusted on a regular basis, depending on formation pressure dynamics, water cut, GOR dynamics, to ensure that well is performing as scheduled in the full field development plan. PetroCup is an online, fully automated facility, and it does not understand, neither it cares, how many people are actually participating in the session. The interaction between PetroCup engine and the team is limited to one person called Captain, who receives login and password and will be able to communicate with PetroCup engine during the active session hours. In addition to that, a remote session moderator from NAFTA is always available to support captains if they meet difficulties in interaction. It is also possible to arrange a face-to-face moderation from NAFTA specialist. Although it is absolutely possible to go through the PetroCup session alone, the best practice from the past suggests that the most efficient asset team structure for PetroCup sessions is going to be at least 9 people, which is actually less than total amount of specialized disciplines involved into the production, but often may be efficiently overlapped in one person at the level of discipline detailing implemented by PetroCup. Here's the picture of the possible arrangement. Asset manager is responsible for the whole project, starting from gathering and training the team and then steering the team through the session. It is important to note that past PetroCup practice was showing that teams which were underperforming in the beginning sometimes were losing a motivation to continue with the best effort and finally performed even worse, while some other teams were highly motivated by the asset managers to learn from mistakes and fight all the way through. It is not even once in PetroCup world when the teams who were at the bottom of the tournament standings in the beginning of the tournament have managed to make their way all the way to the top by the end of the session and finally win. It's also worth mentioning a role which asset managers could play in supporting the teams who finished at the bottom of the tournament and motivate them for the future trials. The FDP engineer is responsible for consolidating the economically balanced development plan for the next time step. Facility engineer is responsible for production economics and rebuilding opportunities based on the nodal analysis. A simulation engineer is responsible for the prioritizing the reserves potentials based on the reserves and pressure distribution. He is also responsible for understanding the fluid properties. Production technologist is responsible for production optimization from existing wells based on the well performance analysis. Geologist is responsible to suggest new reserves opportunities and advise the team on the possible variations in understanding of the initial reserves distribution. Petrophysicist is responsible to help geologist and simulation engineer understand the rock properties from old and newly drilled wells. Well test engineer is responsible to support simulation engineer and production technologist by selecting well test candidates, designing well test procedures, and explaining results on formation pressure, skin dynamics, drainage volumes, permeabilities, and effective well reservoir contacts. Well test engineer helps team design the well test procedure for exploration wells and explain the test results. Well test engineer also helps selecting the production logging candidates. A production logging engineer is responsible for designing the logging package and procedure for flow and profile assessment or integrity survey and explain results to the team. Production logging engineer also helps designing workover program. The PetroCup sessions divide into three major components: briefing, tournament, and debriefing. The briefing requires the presence of all team captains, but obviously team will benefit much more from every participant going through the briefing. It starts with you watching a video on introduction to PetroCup, the very one you are watching now. The session moderator will allow captains to make a shot zero to ensure that they understand online interface and capable to communicate with PetroCup engineer. Specifically, understand where to find the initial data on the field, how to input instructions on drilling, workovers, pump, choke settings, data acquisition, and where to view the production and surveillance response. After that, a session moderator will answer the questions on the coming session specifics. What are the success metrics, market economics, cost structure, and available well intervention and surface facilities? At the end of the briefing, session moderator will open the access to the field review and field data files. The tournament is going to start the same day or the next day, depending on the session arrangement, which will be explained later in this presentation. The PetroCup tournament consists of the shots, which are happening every hour in 1 or 2 days express sessions called XP, and every day in 90 days extramural sessions called XM. The shot defines the time moment when the PetroCup engine will enforce production from all wells for 1 year in express sessions or for 1 month in XM sessions. Missing the moment is irreversible and will enforce base production along with the last available instructions called no further activities. After the tournament is over, the PetroCup engine will open access to debriefing materials, which will reveal the actual field structure and complications, reveal the best field development plan scenario, and help teams understand their performance both in terms of strategy and activity by activity. While the tournament is going on, the table standings is available online so that all teams can see the profitability scores of other teams without accessing the details of their activities. The public session standings are available in runtime at PetroCup website. The standings for the corporate sessions are only available for the teams and special guests who have received the guest login and password. This part will explain what kind of the data is available before the start of the PetroCup tournament. And the first thing to start with is to remind that pre-tournament field review is simply a compilation of the pre-tournament team findings. And it is a very biased viewpoint on the actual field. Judging by the fact that pre-tournament performance was way below the Master Development Plan production targets, one may logically concur that pre-tournament team viewpoint on the field was not at all accurate. This is a starting point for the new team to analyze the field review and understand which data is trustable and which data should be taken with a pinch of salt, and then explore alternative views which may shed the light on the reasons for the underperforming past production, or probably acquire more data to understand the field better. Anyway, the field review will include the following data: structural maps with well locations, pay thickness and reserves density maps, few cross sections, field summary table showing the key field and production metrics, PVT review, core data analysis, conventional and special, open hole data, production history for all wells, both well tests and monthly allocations, and pressure survey history from open hole formation tests, build-up, static gradient surveys, permanent surface or downhole gauges, reports on pressure and rate transient analysis, production logging, and obviously production maps, annual records, and pre-tournament cumulatives. We will explain the short structure, and it starts with drilling new wells. You select a location, you drill the hole, you get open hole data, standard logging package, which petrophysicists is supposed to interpret and explain the results to the team. Then the well is getting completed, and based on the open hole interpretation, the team will decide where to perforate it, and then we'll put on stream. The next step is doing workovers. Particularly select the candidates for the integrity workovers. Like, for example, in this case, we clearly see a water production in here, which is supposed to be patched. So one wants to retrieve a completion and pull down and set the patch. Then pull down the pump and start producing normally. If the study suggests that existing well can contribute to the field production more as an injector rather than producer, then it can be converted. You select the well, you change the completion, and you start injecting. The reverse conversion from injector to producer is also available. There is an option to perform complex reservoir-orientated selective workovers by injecting the stimulating or plugging chemicals into selected intervals. Again, a proper candidate should be identified for the study. Like in this case, there's a lot of water coming out from the lower perforations. And team may wish to plug it. Why need to instruct PetroCup engine to pull out the tubing, specify the water shut-off interval, pump the water shut-off chemicals through this interval, then pull down the pump and put well back in production. Apart from development activities, the team may wish to acquire more data on the well and reservoir performance. For example, call for case hole logging, including various types of production logging and integrity logging. Or call for pressure transient test or cross-well pressure interference test. Once all activities are scheduled and the budget is spent, the team's captain will finalize the shot by instructing the PetroCup engine to produce the field and wait for production response, which may take a few minutes. After the last shot of tournament is over, the tournament is announced to be closed, and PetroCup engine will open access to the pre-calculated debriefing materials, which will include open map review video, which explains the actual field and its complications and how is it different to the initial field review. Then reference FDP video, which explains theoretically best field development plan based on the open map and multivariate analysis. And then best FDP video, which explains the so far the best FDP in blind tournament. And after some time, PetroCup engine will calculate the production results from the last shot and generate the final tournament standings, consolidated statistics, also called CAS, summarizing the key metrics to understand the team's FDP strategies, and activity by activity report on every team, also called AAA report, which contains the performance metrics on key development activities which team undertook during the tournament. The Open Map Review is a web report with a point-by-point list of reservoir features as against the original field review, and a list of production complications which happened in the pre-tournament period of field development. It is also available as a short video where NAFTA specialist is explaining the content of the report. Here is the list of typical complications. It obviously does not cover all possible field complications as there are so many, but the below list can give an idea what kind of complications one may expect. There may be a fault impact, whether impermeable or conductive. There may be wells with some perforated intervals are not being efficient, like in this case, A4. Some wells may suffer from skin buildup depending on local permeability as well as fluid volumes and types produced or injected. Some well reservoir contacts may develop spontaneous hydraulic or thermal fractures, which may have a severe impact on production nearby. Some wells may suffer from behind casing channelings, like in this case injector is injecting a lot of fluid away from the main pay into the A2 formation. Some field areas may feature anomalously high permeability faces, which may or may not be separated from the main pay. One may expect that the previous team has not picked up all fluid contacts accurately, which may lead to a different picture of reserves distribution. Some reserves can be completely overlooked despite of the clear hints in the regional data package. The same mistake may exist in understanding of the actual extension of the previously localized reserves. The Consolidated Activity Statistics is a table-type web report which puts teams into columns and contains numerous rows with various metrics and statistics on teams' activity and performance. The rows split into 3 batches: financial statistics, production statistics, and injection statistics. The financial statistics section is showing the final standings, cumulative earnings, ultimate recovery at the end of the field life cycle, total budget in hand for each team, and budget breakdown by activities on producers and injectors. Production statistics summarizes the team activity on producers and brings some metrics on its efficiency. It shows number of wells drilled and the initial rates. It shows statistics on cumulative production from new wells as against the old wells. It also shows how much efforts the team was putting into workovers and what type of workovers. One can also see how much and what type of data was acquired by team during the tournament. Injection statistics summarizes the team activity on injectors and brings some metrics on its efficiency in a similar way as for producers. The activity by activity analysis, also called AAA, is a web report containing the performance metrics on key development activities which team undertook during the tournament. The slides below will take a very brief glance at what kind of data and metrics are used. It starts with a summary of the key politics which are thought to be valid all the way until the end of the tournament. In this case, us, a team, has started the field review and decided to stick with the following strategy. Spend 50% of the budget on drilling, 40% on workovers, 10% on data acquisition, and 5% on study. The next rule is to maintain cumulative voidage replacement ratio at 125% while keeping production and injection losses below 10% each. Set a primary focus on intensifying development of the south area by drilling more producers and injectors. The next focus would be exploration drilling at south and northwest. The workovers should be focused on fixing the behind casing crossflow in injectors with more than 10% thief injection and producers with more than 10% thief production. The next focus is to shut off the hypermobility streak at the top of the B2 unit, both in injectors and producers. Production rates and injection rates should be adjusted on a regular basis for all wells to maximize drawdown while keeping the bottom hole above minimum in producers and below maximum in injectors. The minimal and maximum bottom hole pressure should be regularly evaluated based on the proximity and pressure in aquifer. Then AAA will show the residual reserves distribution in comparison with the best practice. This is where the teams can see where their production focus was set properly and where they have missed the opportunity. The good strategy usually ends up with more uniform distribution of residual reserves, although permeability, volatility, and economics may sometimes oppose the strategy. One can see that Jura team did not do a fair effort to produce from southwest reserves accumulation. The next step is to look at the pressure distribution and see where team has managed to repressurize the main pay and where it did not succeed. One can see that Jura team was not supporting pressure at southwest as sufficiently, which explains poor recovery from this area, which was captured at the residual reserves distribution map before. These type of slides are showing performance metric of drilling a new producer. one can see that formation pressure in perforated reservoir here was very low, which was not picked up by the team who did not wish to do wireline formation testing. No surprise that production rate from this well was not impressive. The other important observation is that bottom aquifer here is showing a noticeable pressure reduction, which means that some nearby wells are producing from it. It gives a strong hint to analyze the vicinity, identify the logging candidates to locate thief production and fix it. These type of slides are showing performance metric of drilling a new injector. One can see that formation pressure in perforated reservoir unit was lower than initial, and placing injector in this area have a fair sense. The injection rate appeared to be fair. Again, the bottom aquifer shows a strong sign of depletion, which is a case for thief production concern from nearby producers. These type of slides are showing how flow profile, pressure profile, and skin profile has changed after the walkover, which gives a clear picture of how successful the walkover was. In this case, team has managed to shut off highly watered hypermobility unit and start producing oil from underlying reservoir. This type of slides are showing well flow performance diagram on each well and whether it was maximized to the allowable limits. In this specific case, one can see that well was not fully adjusted, and there was a possibility to increase the flow rate further up to 60 cubes per day and stay above the critical bottom hole pressure without a fear to induce a communication with the aquifer. The previous slides were showing some session specifics which are common to all session types. There are different ways to go through the PetroCup tournament which pursue different objectives. These are the public sessions, corporate sessions, tutor sessions, and certificate sessions. Public sessions are happening every mid-month and tracked online at petrocup.com website. Everyone can track the tournament standings online, and they will stay in archives after the tournament. Some public sessions are sponsored, usually at some conferences, events, and everybody can join a team. Corporate sessions are run by specific clients who are interested to train and test their teams in-house. The access to the corporate tournament standings is obviously restricted. The tutor session is meant for the students and young specialists and is normally part of the academic field development training course, which includes few tutor tournaments. The certificate session is a one-day face-to-face session where individuals can go through the tournament alone and show individual performance and get NAFTA certificate on the PetroCup performance. All PetroCup sessions are also divided into two large groups by duration and interface. Express sessions, called XP, and long-term extramural sessions, called DST. Express sessions are few days only and require full distraction from the corporate duties. The XP3 session is the shortest among all. It's only one day, and teams can only make 3 shots and get debriefing at consolidated activity statistics level. The only available AAA is pre-recorded one on the reference FDP and on the best practice FDP. This session gives an idea of PetroCup and makes up a nice team building. The XP7 session is a 2-day event, and it is one of the most popular type of sessions in PetroCup world. This is the base format for NAFTA's monthly PetroCup public sessions. It's the base format for certificate sessions, and it is quite popular as in-house corporate training. The XP10 session is taking full 3 days and the most popular among petroleum companies, as it gives more time to study the data. The 4XP7 session is actually a field development training course consisting of 4 regular XP7 tournaments. The DST90 is extramural session based on daily shot tournament, and it is run in the background and only need 1 hour a day, usually at lunchtime, from a team to sit down and discuss the next step. It gives the maximum exposure to PetroCup world facilities and highest realism of the asset team workflow. Unlike express sessions, in DST sessions, all data is coming to team as raw and require processing and interpretation from the team's specialists. The XP3 session starts with 30 minutes video introduction. The field review becomes available to the teams, and after 3 hours, teams should place the first shot. During the next 3 hours, team will have lunch and complete 2 shots. After a short break, the debriefing will start with video on open map review and AAA on the so far the best FDP scenario. The session is finalized by the consolidated activity statistics review on the teams. The XP7 session requires teams' captains to attend the briefing 1 day before the tournament. After the briefing, the field review becomes available so the teams can start reading and understanding the field and production history. The tournament starts at 10 o'clock in the morning and finishes at 6 o'clock in the evening, given 1 hour between the shots, except the lunchtime, which make a 2 hours gap between the third and fourth shots. The next day, the debriefing will start with open map review video, followed by AAA video on the best FDP scenario. This will be followed by consolidated activity statistics review video with few comments from NAFTA specialist. After the lunch, each team will go through the AAA presentation on its performance. The XP10 session is very much the same as XP7, with the only difference is that the tournament starts on the first day right after the briefing, giving the team 4.5 hours to read the field review and discuss the first shot. This makes XP10 a 3-day session as against XP7, which was a 2-day session. The 4 XP7 session is a highly customized field development training course. It actually includes 4 XP7 tournaments over 4 different assets, but each asset is customized for the specific purposes of this training. The training starts with master classes led by NAFTA specialist in the form of XP7 tournament extended for 5 days, during which NAFTA specialist will be taking the class deep into the line of thoughts on how to analyze the data and make a fair decision. After the weekend, the class will go through the regular 2 days XP7 tournament without major assistance. At the end of the second day, NAFTA specialist will make a debriefing on the session results and explain the successes and mistakes. Then class will go again through the XP7 tournament on another synthetic field without any assistance, followed by full-size debriefing from NAFTA specialist. The last day of the course is the certification session, which is performed in the form of 1-day XP7 tournament on a new field with all attendees participating individually or as a team, as per demand. No debriefing required. The DST90 is a daily shot tournament. It's the most realistic and the most complicated form of PetroCup simulation. It goes as 90 days tournament with 1 shot per day, completed at midnight by Greenwich time. Each calendar day is equivalent to 1 month in synthetic field, thus making DST90 a 7.5-year field development project. The teams can join this tournament without major distraction from their main work. The usual practice is to spend lunch together and discuss the next step for the next day of the whole weekend. Unlike express sessions, in DST sessions, the teams are challenged to do data processing, interpretation and modeling all by themselves, using the available software facilities at work or at home. Once the tournament is over, the open map review, AAA on the best development scenario will become available. 2 days later, the consolidated activity statistics will become also available as a web table. The AAA on team's performance is not normally available. Thank you for your kind attention and hope to see you at the next PetroCup tournament.